Hello to everyone tuning in and welcome to Fidelity Next. I'm your host, Tamara Radachai. Today we're going to be diving into Fidelity Canada in the world of Reddit. Once a month or so, we host a Reddit AMA or Ask Me Anything session to build our online community and open up a two-way communication channel with our audience. From portfolio managers to experts in various areas of the business, the Reddit community can ask us questions and get prompt answers directly from Fidelity. Often we talk about career opportunities with key members of our talent acquisition team. Which brings us to our guest today. We're here with Jessica Stefan, Manager of Employee and Student Experience, who leads our campus recruitment team. In today's session, we'll be readdressing some of our top asked questions from past student career-focused Reddit AMAs to give you a sense of what these discussions look like, and most importantly, to answer all your questions. Jess, welcome to Fidelity Next.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
All right, so before we jump into our questions from Reddit, can you give us a little bit about yourself and your journey to Fidelity, what you do on your team, and maybe a little bit about Fidelity's culture?
Happy to. So for me personally, I joined Fidelity when I graduated many years ago. I was in the sales team for 10 years in a variety of roles, from coordinator to inside wholesaler, and then moved over to the management side. As life would have it, decided to take a few years off to be with my young family. So was able to be at home with my children for about 8 years. And I'm now back at the organization about a year and a half in on the campus side this time around.
Really nice, thank you. And I know you've been a part of some of these Reddit AMA discussions that we've had. We just actually we just had our 21st Reddit AMA. So why do you think it's important to keep that two-way communication going?
And congratulations. I think it's a fantastic way to engage the student audience. I think, there's a lot of bonuses to this sort of strategy. I think first and foremost, this is how individuals access information now. We still continue to go out with job fairs. We're on campuses. We engage with student associations and membership by way of sponsorship. But a really important channel to engage the student audience is, of course, online with socials and through, webcasts like Fidelity Next. So I think it's a great way to engage with the audience. And of course, with the AMAs, we have that direct feedback mechanism. And it's important that we know what questions are out there and how students are kind of recognizing us as an organization. It helps us as well make sure that we're building a program that's most nurturing for students.
Yeah, pick out all the areas, points of weakness, perhaps.
Totally, right? Yeah. You don't know until you do know. And oftentimes it's fresh sets of eyes. And students that have their pulse, of course, on their relative campuses and cohorts, they can tell us what matters to them, and they can help us define how our program looks and feels for students. And ultimately, the goal for us is to bring students into the complex, develop and nurture the students, and hopefully convert these individuals into full-time employees at Fidelity.
Love that. Yeah. So historically, you've been behind the computer at a lot of our careers-focused AMAs. Yeah. So we're going to be taking some of the questions that were asked in a few of these and put you on the spot and have you address them here and now. Perfect. So I'm going to look at some of the questions that students have submitted all about career prospects at Fidelity. So we'll take it away with the first one.
Sounds good.
Are students who have recently graduated from a university co-op program still eligible for co-op or internship opportunities at Fidelity?
Yeah, fair question. And I think each organization varies in terms of what their policy and process is. For Fidelity, because we do have a great emphasis not only on our student program, but our early careers, we do define the spaces independent of one another. So students that are enrolled full-time in a post-secondary role that are eligible, of course, to meet the demands of a full-time student placement are eligible for the program. Individuals that are recent graduates are best to be looking at our early career opportunities. So it's always best to check out our careers website and go from there.
Great. Are student opportunities only at Fidelity's Toronto office, or are there positions available in other cities?
Yeah, another good question. So yes, Fidelity's head office is in Toronto. That is where the majority of our student roles are domiciled. However, we do have an office in Montreal with various roles that would include sales, client services, and or more of a transactional or back office support. And then within our Vancouver and Calgary offices, we do have student sales opportunities available as well.
Great, good to know. This is a bit of a longer question, I think,
Oh,
but
boy.
what makes an applicant attractive to the company, both in
Okay.
terms of technical skills and behavioral traits?
Yeah, okay, so let's start with the technical, that's kind of a two-part answer in of itself. There are certain roles, I would say largely on the analytical side of the organization, be it the finance roles, the IS or IT roles. Those do carry with them pretty specific requirements in terms of experience and technical. So I would say that, yeah, your resume has to be a bit more developed in order to be competitive. But then there are other areas of the business where, it's soft skills and, a combination, I would say, of soft skills and those that students based on their areas of studies would bring to the table. So for roles, for example, in sales, in marketing, and HR, while of course foundational information and core interest is important, we're certainly able to engage with students at the earlier side of their career and bring them into the complex through those types of roles. And then the second piece, what do we look for? I think that's a pretty consistent question across the board, whether it's a very technical role or a role where softer skills are valued. Are you motivated by either the markets or the financial services industry? Are you keen to learn more? Do you like to learn? Do you take initiative? Do you work well in teams? Do you have a just generally good attitude? And certainly for each role, it differs based on the subject matter, but student affiliation in extracurriculars, in different associations, in some sort of community initiative, those go a long way as well, just to define, it helps us understand who you are as not only a student and or a professional, but just personally where you're able to put forth time and energy into areas that matter to you.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own unique story, right?
I think
And
so.
Should be telling that story.
Absolutely.
Showing what's
Absolutely.
interesting to them.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Okay, next question.
Sure.
What are some of the student opportunities in the technology space?
Yeah, no, good question. Within the student space, we have IT architecture, digital applications. We have IT roles anchored in our FCC or Fidelity Clearing Canada portfolio, as well as a suite of opportunities within the emerging tech side of the business. So those combined, more project-based, but looking at automation, artificial intelligence, and areas of that ilk. These are more technical roles, so again, we do require students to have pretty specific experience and portfolios that would align well, but we do our best to align with students and bring them into the complex through these opportunities.
Great. And similarly, what makes a software developer profile or resume stand out? And what types of roles do you have available in this space specifically?
Yeah, I mean, it's always best to first and foremost look at the job description. We'll always lay out what sort of language is required and what sorts of technicals and work specific foundations are required. But another great way to stand out is to talk about your own personal projects and your own independent portfolio. I know our panelists always learn a lot from students and are excited to kind of be able to access their passion around these sorts of projects that they were more so self-propelled into. So that's another way to stand out within this space.
Cool, great. And what does the student recruitment process look like?
Yeah, sure. So I can use an example of, let's say, winter 2025. So we are quite cyclical in how we recruit, but again, I will give winter 25 as an example. So we will recruit several months ahead of time. Recruitment for winter 25, we'd have 2 weeks of resume intake, September 9 to September 20. Following that 2 weeks of resume intake, we then shortlist candidates, and we'll be in touch with candidates in those, I'd say, 1 to 3 week periods to book interviews for these candidates. Did want to note Fidelity will only interview remotely for student roles for a variety of reasons. Ultimately, we acknowledge that students are interviewing with multiple organizations. We appreciate that students first and foremost are students, and they can also be a pretty wide range of geographic distribution. So in order to be consistent and respectful of students, we will have all of our interviews done over Zoom. It will be one interview where the student will interview with a panel. The panel will consist of a member from the campus team and then 2 managers that would be directly related to the role the student is interviewing for. The reason we interview by panel is that we like to remove selection bias, and we also acknowledge that for successful students, once they're placed at Fidelity, if they're looking to come back to us for another term, we will look to find an opportunity for them. So it's good to have multiple managers and just generally a cross-section of Fidelity representatives have buy-in and appreciation for the students' potential within the organization, if that makes sense.
More efficient in any case.
I think so, yeah, for both parties, for sure.
And what does that timeline typically look like?
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty tight. Again, we recognize that students are interviewing with multiple institutions and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. So after the 2-week resume intake, and then I'd say, anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks for interview plotting. From there, we typically make decisions in the week or 2 following. So all in, we're looking at about a 6-week window. And then of course, we rinse and repeat and we're moving on to
the next term.
To summer 25. So very much a cyclical process, which is fantastic. We appreciate the structure, and we very much value the relationships we have with all of the universities and career centers that help support us in this recruitment process.
So summer 25 would be recruited in January.
Summer 25 in January.
Sorry, summer 20. Yeah,
yeah, you got it. Yep.
In January
and then,
25.
Fall 25 would recruit in May 25. So you essentially have that 3-month buffer that's always leading up to any potential placement term.
Great. Okay, next question.
Sure.
How is a student's experience working at Fidelity different from other investment managers in Canada?
Yeah, good question. I think, and I touched on it briefly, but a big differentiator, I think, at Fidelity is that we make a great effort to keep successful students in the complex. But to be mindful that we're placing them in another area of the organization that, number one, they're interested in, and that, number two, will really round out their experience with us. So we do have a process by which we're able to extend return offers to students, and ultimately for the student, I hope there's benefit in that they get to experience different areas of the business. And sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you can happen upon an area of the organization that you wouldn't otherwise have known about. And we as the organization are able to really round out a student's experience. And as we're looking, hopefully, to convert that student into full time, they come with a really robust perspective. I would say our student program does a lot. There is, of course, the role the student's hired into, and then there's the overarching student program. The student program helps students work on both soft and hard skills. There's a variety of training options available. As well, there's a lot of effort to socialize the students with different areas of the business. As I mentioned, we like to place return offers where appropriate, and we do want to make sure that those are areas the students are keen on. So we do need to have a lot of work placed into students understanding different areas of the business. They get access to senior executive. We'll do a lot to facilitate coffee chats and just, again, make sure that students are well aware of all of the opportunities around them. And I would say that I'm biased, but I haven't heard of many opportunities for students where they get such a robust experience, and we're really proud of that. And our business partners do a lot to help support that. So we're very grateful.
Yeah, I know that on average, we have about 45% of our students that are returning students. So that's a really good indicator.
Yeah, I'd like to think that. So we'll keep doing what we're doing. And we have, like I said, a wide cross-section of business partners. Farida Karkudi, of course, running the student program that do just wonderful work to make sure students are engaged and fulfilled. So again, something we're proud of. And I'm envious that years ago, I couldn't have been part of this program myself.
Right, me too.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. In a similar vein, but are there any training or professional development opportunities at Fidelity for interns or students or those in entry-level positions?
Oof, yeah, where to start? So there's a wide variety of training. I mentioned with the student program, there is internal training as well as external vendors that will come in and give certain types of training, be it business etiquette, different presentation skills, hard skills with Excel and other types of language. And then we also have our My Development, which is an internal platform of Fidelity supported remote learning and or online learning opportunities. And then we also have Udemy, which is, again, I think it's at 10 or 15,000 different types of courses.
14,000.
14, there you go. So again, there's no shortage. It's almost a matter of, figuring out what it is that, not looking for what possibly you could do, but just culling the list down to what is digestible for you to absorb. And I think that's a big tenet of the organization, whether it's a student or a senior VP. There's a real focus on continuing education, continuing development, and continuing learning. And I think that's to everyone's benefit at the organization.
Absolutely. And are there possibilities for a full-time position after completing an internship at Fidelity?
For sure. We do our best. There are certain areas of the business where there is a larger volume or likelihood of entry-level roles. I would use sales as an example in the business development representative role. But always what our team campus does is keeps in very close contact with talent acquisition. Talent acquisition is the other arm of HR recruitment that manages all of the full-time roles at Fidelity. So we do our best to socialize students with opportunities and to make sure that talent acquisition is well acquainted as well with these students upon graduation, so that for those that are successful and keen and wanting to come back to the organization, we do our very best to provide that runway.
Great, amazing. Are there opportunities at Fidelity catered to first-year students?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. Again, when we look at our more, financial and IT-based analytical roles, those typically are earmarked for more senior students based on the requirements, based on, the previous experience that is needed to succeed in the role. But there are a wide cross-section of roles at Fidelity that a junior student could certainly thrive in. We have sales, we have marketing, HR, different types of roles that, again, would engage a younger student audience and would provide a great platform for future placements at Fidelity.
Great to know for students at any level. And last question from our Reddit sample. Sure. How does Fidelity give feedback to students, and are there prospects for mentorship?
Yeah, I think all of the above. There is a lot of feedback in just the architecture of how the student roles are developed. These are roles that are actually meaningful to the business. So instead of creating headcount for a full-time role, there's careful consideration and thought around making sure that student roles are put into different lines of business so that students are working on meaningful projects, and as such, they're going to have a very clear feedback mechanism from their line manager. Managers do certainly commit to a feedback and one-on-one meeting schedule that would be consistent with their full-time employees. As well, there is that overarching student program where students have various, I think, metrics and feedback opportunities based on the types of training that they're doing. Students can be involved in a case competition, specifically over the summer term, where their presentation skills and, of course, their thought generation is something that can be critiqued based on those judges that are involved in the case competition. And certainly from a campus perspective on our team, we're able to provide student feedback and direction, and that of course will inform, along with the student's appetite, what opportunities might be for the student, not only in future student placements, but then as students look at their full-time potential as they're looking to graduate.
And what about mentorship?
Good one, mentorship. So I would say for the student program, while there isn't a specific mentorship program that is available to students relative to full-time employees, each student will come into the organization with a buddy. So there's great effort to pair up a junior or first-time student with a returning student. Again, to your point, we're 45% or so each time round of returning students. So we're able to leverage that and make sure that students have a buddy so that they know that they have someone that they can ask those questions to. They might not want to ask their line manager or the individuals on campus or on the recruitment side of the business. So that's in place as well. They have a really clear support system with the individual Verita who runs the student program. So I would say that multiple levels of feedback that can address multiple levels of development for the student. And that's something that, transparency is really important, for everyone in the process. So that's something we're really mindful of.
Yeah, and that feedback goes two ways, right? I know for the purpose of this show, we always meet with students to get their feedback on what type of content they want to see, what they're most interested in. So a lot of our topics are actually informed by them.
There are business objectives and projects that have been a big focus for Fidelity that were generated by student ideas. I'm thinking back to a few case competitions where student proposals were actually nurtured and developed into pretty significant initiatives at Fidelity. So absolutely, I think the students' feedback is really important to us. And certainly, that feedback mechanism also exists between our campus team and the career centers as well. We want to make sure that we continue to develop and maintain really healthy relationships with all of the campuses. So again, we always have much to learn, and we appreciate any feedback that is shared with us.
Great. And then final question.
Sure.
To anyone who is thinking about joining the discussions on Reddit and asking us questions, whether that's in an upcoming AMA session or just within our subreddit, what are some recommendations on your end as to what they should be asking or what can they be asking?
I mean, I think there's that adage, there's no such thing as a silly question.
Right.
If you have a question that you want clarified, I think there are a few organizations as transparent as Fidelity and as willing to engage. So ask away. There's no such thing as a bad question would be my advice. But beyond that, I don't know if you have any suggestions, Tamara. I know you live more so in that space, but again, I don't think any question is a bad one.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of Reddit is that it's anonymous, right? So no one will know that it's your silly question if you think that it is a silly question.
Have silly questions, yeah.
And we really do try and answer everything we get, every question we get. So please feel free to ask.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Jess. This was really, really insightful. Hope all the students watching get as much from it as I did, and I'm not even a student.
Wow, no, thank you for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you again. Thanks to everyone who watched today's episode of Fidelity Next. If you're curious to dive deeper into our Reddit discussions, you can find us on the Fidelity Canada subreddit. Just make sure it's Fidelity Canada, not Fidelity Investments, because that'll take you to our friends over at Fidelity in the US. And if you have any questions for us, please join our Reddit community and feel free to drop them into our subreddit. You don't have to wait for a monthly AMA to chat with us. We're happy to keep the conversation going anytime. Again, thanks to everyone for joining the discussion today, and we'll see you on the next episode.